Marcus has been investing in index funds for 12 years. He's contributed $86,400 of his own money. His account today holds $71,200. He did everything he was told to do. He bought index funds, and he is sitting on a loss relative to his own contributions after over a decade of consistent investing. I know how that sounds. Let me earn it. Marcus and Daniel both started investing the same month 12 years ago. Both were 28. Both had $10,000 to start. Both decided correctly that index funds were the smartest place to put it. That is where the similarity ends. Both men believed they were doing the same thing. Neither one thought there was a wrong way to invest in an index fund. It is index investing, the boring, supposedly foolproof strategy that every finance book recommends. How much room for error could there possibly be? There is more room for error than almost anyone realizes, and the mistakes are not about picking the wrong fund. They are about everything that happens after you buy it. Marcus did not buy one index fund and hold it. He bought a total market index fund initially, then 2 years in, moved into a technology sector index fund because it had outperformed the broader market by 8 points the previous year. 18 months later, energy sector funds were having a moment, so he shifted a portion there. When international emerging markets had a strong quarter, he added that too. Each move felt like an upgrade. He was chasing whichever index had just performed best, buying the recent winner instead of the future one. According to a 2023 study from Morningstar tracking investor cash flows into and out of sector-specific index funds, the average investor who chased top-performing sector funds earned approximately 4.7 percentage points less annually than the sector funds themselves, because they consistently bought in after the outperformance had already happened and sold after the underperformance had already started. Daniel bought VTI, a total U.S. market index fund, in month 1. He has never sold a share of it and never bought anything else. Same fund, 12 years, no exceptions.
Here is a scene you have probably lived. You have money to invest. A bonus, a tax refund, savings finally built up, and instead of putting it in immediately, you wait. The market feels a little high. You'll wait for a dip. The dip does not come, or it does and you wait for it to go lower, and by the time you decide to act, the moment has passed and you are chasing a price that already moved. That instinct, waiting for the right entry point, is one of the most costly habits in investing, and it feels completely rational while you're doing it. According to a study by Charles Schwab Center for Financial Research that tracked 5 hypothetical investors over 20 years, one who invested a lump sum immediately every year, one who waited for the perfect market low each year, and one who invested nothing and held cash, the investor who put money in immediately outperformed the perfect timer by a measurable margin over 2 decades, even though the perfect timer theoretically bought at the best possible price each year. The cost of waiting, even successfully, outweighed the benefit of the better entry price. Marcus held cash on the sidelines for months at a time, waiting for dips. Across 12 years, Schwab's research suggests that pattern alone likely cost him somewhere in the range of 1 to 2 percentage points of annual return, money lost not to a bad fund, but to hesitation. In 2020, the market dropped 34% in 4 weeks. Marcus sold nearly half his position in March, certain it would fall further. He bought back in 5 months later, after the market had already recovered most of its losses, buying his own shares back at a higher price than he sold them. This is not a rare mistake. It is the single most common one. According to DALBAR's 2023 quantitative analysis of investor behavior, the average equity fund investor earned 6.81% annually over the past 30 years, while the S&P 500 itself returned 10.15% over the identical period. That 3.34 percentage point gap is not a fund performance problem. Every dollar in that data was invested in essentially the same index products Marcus and Daniel both own.
The gap is entirely behavioral. Investors selling during drops and buying back after recoveries, repeatedly, for 3 decades straight. Daniel did not sell in 2020. He did not check his account for most of that year. His contribution kept arriving automatically on the 15th of every month, buying more shares while prices were down, without him making a single decision about it. Marcus holds his index funds in a taxable brokerage account and trades them like they're a checking account for opportunities, moving money in and out based on conviction. Every sale of a fund held less than a year triggers short-term capital gains, taxed as ordinary income at his 24% bracket. Every sale of a fund held over a year still triggers 15% long-term capital gains, even when he immediately reinvests the proceeds into a different index fund. According to Vanguard's Investment Strategy Group research on tax-adjusted returns, investors who trade in and out of index positions within taxable accounts lose an average of 1 to 1.5 percentage points annually to tax drag compared to buy and hold investors in identical funds. Daniel's index fund sits inside a Roth IRA. He contributes the maximum allowed, $7,000 annually per the 2024 IRS limit, and every dollar of growth inside that account will come out completely tax-free in retirement, according to IRS publication 590B. He has never triggered a taxable event in 12 years because he has never sold anything. Marcus is not just fighting the market's volatility, he is fighting the tax code every time he moves.
Marcus's original total market fund carries a 0.68% expense ratio, a legacy, actively managed adjacent index fund his old broker recommended. Daniel's fund, VTI, carries a 0.03% expense ratio. That difference, 0.65 percentage points annually, sounds too small to matter. It is the kind of number people glance past on a fund fact sheet without registering it as consequential. Here is the actual weight of it. On $10,000 invested for 30 years at a 10.1% gross historical return, a 0.03% expense ratio leaves the investor with approximately $172,000. The same $10,000 in a fund charging 0.68%, a 0.65 point higher annual drag, leaves the investor with approximately $141,000. That gap, from a number that looks like a rounding error on a brochure, is $31,000 on a single $10,000 investment held for 3 decades. Marcus never checked. He assumed all index funds were essentially interchangeable. Add it up. 12 years, same starting capital, same category of investment, 5 compounding mistakes stacked on top of each other: sector chasing, entry timing, panic selling, tax inefficient trading, and a bloated expense ratio. Marcus contributed $86,400 over 12 years. His account today, $71,200. Daniel contributed the identical $86,400 over the same 12 years into the same category of fund, doing none of it differently except the mechanics: one fund, one account type, automated, untouched. Daniel's account today, $164,800. The gap between them is $93,600. Not from picking a better index, from doing index investing correctly instead of almost correctly. Marcus is not a bad investor because he lacks discipline in some abstract sense. He is behind because index investing has a hidden set of rules that nobody puts on the label, and breaking any one of them quietly compounds against you for years before the damage becomes visible. Marcus's story is not finished. He switched to a total market fund 8 months ago, moved everything into a Roth IRA, and has not touched it since. Whether that correction, made 12 years into the process, is enough to close the gap before he retires is a question that will not have an answer for another 20 decades. And it depends on whether he can actually hold this time through the next crash that is coming eventually, without repeating the pattern. That is the real test of index investing, not picking the fund, surviving your own decisions long enough to let it work.
We are going to check back in on both of their accounts in a future video, because the honest truth is the next market drop will tell us more about whether Marcus actually fixed this than any of these 12 years did. Subscribe to Wealth Science so you are there when we run those numbers.